Hey everyone, and welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're looking at something absolutely massive. We're talking about a multi-billion rupee infrastructure project right at the heart of Pakistan's western economic frontier. We're exploring the Quetta Expo Centre. Now, this is a facility designed to completely transform regional commerce, empower local industries, and literally connect untapped regional resources directly to global markets. We're going to get into the engineering, the economics, and honestly, the rather surprising drama behind its creation. So let's get right into it.
To really understand this project, we actually need to fast forward a bit to March 2026. Just as construction on this giant facility was finally getting some serious momentum, it was suddenly, and very dramatically, frozen. The Senate Standing Committee on Commerce stepped in and effectively ordered the entire federal project to just halt, stop. But why? How does a project designed to literally print regional wealth suddenly become the center of a tense parliamentary showdown in Islamabad?
Well, the answer actually lies with the very people the center was built to serve. You see, the Quetta Chamber of Commerce and Industry started raising some fierce concerns over the project's chosen location at the Takhtani Industrial Estate. They argued it was just way too far from the main urban center, and more importantly, they raised some serious red flags about security vulnerabilities for international delegates and foreign VIPs. Their fear? They worried that without safe, accessible transit corridors, the project could become, in their exact words, a multi-billion rupee ghost facility. No one wants that.
Okay, Section 1. A project almost canceled. The March 2026 showdown. Okay, let's dive into this, because this parliamentary standoff is absolutely fascinating. It really highlights the complex reality of building large-scale infrastructure in frontier regions. During a pretty fiery session in March 2026, the Senate committee, which was led by Senator Anusha Raman, recognized a harsh, undeniable reality. If foreign buyers aren't safe, you don't have an international trade facility, right? You just have an empty building. Ensuring the safety of those buyers is paramount. So convinced by the evidence regarding the accessibility of that eastern bypass site, they hit the brakes. They froze the funding until alternative options could be looked at.
Moving on to Section 2. Balochistan's Global Trade Gateway. The economic prize.
To really grasp why freezing this project was such a huge deal, we have to rewind the narrative a bit and look at exactly what's at stake here. Historically, Balochistan has possessed vast raw wealth but zero modern platforms to actually showcase it. Think about the smartphone or laptop you're watching this on right now. The global supply chain relies on regions exactly like this one. We're talking massive outputs of copper and chromite from the Sindak and Reko Diq regions. Then you have high-value agriculture, fresh Ziyarat apples, grapes, a booming dry fruit processing industry. Add to that the traditional SMEs producing world-renowned mirrorwork textiles. Right now, local artisans and miners are kind of stuck. They're forced to rely on middlemen in distant coastal hubs like Karachi. This Expo Center, it's designed to completely eliminate those middlemen, meaning all that wealth can be generated directly within the province.
All right, Section 3. Inside the corporate engine, PakExcel.
Now, what's really interesting about this operational model is how it clears up a massive misconception. A lot of people just assume the government actually organizes the trade fairs. They don't. Behind the scenes, this isn't just a government building. It's a carefully engineered corporate machine managed by PakExcel, which is a joint venture between the federal and provincial governments. They use what's called a dry hire venue model. Basically, the facility acts as a neutral master landlord. They handle the heavy stuff, security, massive central cooling networks, the digital systems. But the actual exhibitions, the booth designs, the floor leasing, that's all contracted out to specialized third-party private event companies.
And to make this hybrid model actually work, they couldn't just operate like a standard, slow-moving government department. Instead of relying on those traditional civil service pay scales, the BPS charts, PakExcel operates like a fiercely competitive corporation. They're offering private sector, market-based salaries upwards of 500,000 rupees a month, complete with executive privileges. This is incredibly intentional. It lets them poach top-tier talent from the private sector, brilliant civil engineers, IT managers who actually know how to deploy modern enterprise software. It's essentially a fast-paced startup trapped inside a federal project.
And you can see that private sector mindset driving some seriously cutting-edge modernization. They aren't just pushing paper around. They're rolling out a net zero transition plan, using localized solar grids and high-efficiency absorption chillers to fight the crazy energy costs of an arid climate. They've also transitioned to 100% digital workflows, e-office only, completely abandoning slow paperwork. They've even put their staff through AI leadership activation sessions to optimize logistics. It's wild. It is a state-owned facility, but it hums like a modern tech company.
Which brings us to Section 4, Years of Bureaucratic Delays. But of course, despite this sleek corporate structure, the project still collided with the chaotic reality of state bureaucracy. So how did we end up at that 2026 crisis? Let's trace it back. The project was originally approved by the federal government way back in 2019. But then, it hit a brick wall. Severe macroeconomic headwinds meant the government had to strictly limit imports, the famous LC limits. Because of that, they simply couldn't bring in the flexible German modular materials and advanced cooling grids they desperately needed to build the thing. A revised PCI blueprint wasn't approved until January 2025, right before the Senate froze it all over again in March 2026.
And here is exactly why those years of delays were so agonizing. Time is quite literally money here. Thanks to stalled construction and soaring inflation, the budget exploded. What started as an initial 2.5 billion rupee budget staggered all the way up to 4.82 billion rupees by the time the revised blueprint was approved. The stakes had practically doubled, which made the Senate's decision to halt everything in 2026 all the more terrifying for everyone involved.
All right, Section 5, the Double Expo Compromise.
So how on earth did they pull this multi-billion rupee project back from the brink of total cancellation? Enter the Chief Minister of Balochistan, Mir Safraz Bukti. He stepped in and managed to brilliantly illustrate the core of the debate. He traveled to Islamabad and basically said, look, the Takhtani Estate location, it's completely non-negotiable for local heavy industry. It sits right next to active manufacturing zones, perfect for lugging around massive marble slabs and heavy machinery. But, and here's where he was totally impartial, he acknowledged the Senate had a very valid point. Foreign buyers absolutely need high security, seamless transit, and the airport is the only place that provides that for high-level corporate summits.
So he proposed this incredibly elegant, two-pronged resolution. Step 1. The Senate agrees to unfreeze the 4.82 billion rupee federal project at the Takhtani Estate, letting it thrive as a gritty, heavy industry and logistics hub. Step 2. The government of Balochistan commits to independently financing and building a secondary, smaller expo display center right next to the Quetta International Airport. That one is strictly for high-security digital trade and foreign VIP transit. Honestly, it was a masterstroke. Both sides got exactly what they needed.
With that consensus finally locked in, the physical build at the main Takhtani site is now racing toward a very firm completion target of November 2027. And the physical scale of this place is just wild. We're talking a 50-acre master site footprint. It features 2 massive 45,000-square-foot open-span, pillarless exhibition halls. They're structurally engineered to withstand the sheer weight of heavy industrial machinery, and the whole thing is kept cool by those heavy-duty absorption chillers fighting off the arid desert climate. It's a serious feat of modern engineering.
Which brings us to the ultimate question. By balancing the raw grit of heavy industrial logistics with the high-security demands of international commerce, this project has evolved into something entirely unique. Will this bold dual-hub experiment finally bypass those coastal middlemen and unlock an entirely new economic frontier? It's a massive gamble, for sure, but the answer is going to reshape this region's economy for decades to come. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer, and definitely keep your eyes on Quetta.